This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Well, here's something that's extremely rare. Nissan is planning to close at least 2 assembly plants in Japan. Those plants account for 30% of its domestic production. And a report out of Japan says Nissan will also close 2 plants in Mexico, as well as ones in India, Argentina, and South Africa. Nissan issued a statement denying the report and said it's based on speculation. However, the report does line up with cost-cutting plans that Nissan revealed last week, which say it wants to close 7 plants globally and cut 20,000 jobs. If Nissan does close plants in Japan, it would be the first time since 2001 and will likely send shockwaves through Japanese society. That's why we believe that behind closed doors, the Japanese government is doing all that it can to help Nissan survive. First, it tried to arrange a merger between Nissan and Honda. When that fell apart, a new report from Japan says that Toyota even offered to help. The report doesn't say what came of the talks, and both automakers declined to comment. Last week, Nissan's new CEO, Ivan Espinosa, said the company is still, quote, evaluating potential partners, which could include Foxconn. The auto industry plays an outsized role in the Japanese economy, and the government realizes that the industry faces unprecedented upheaval, which is why it's desperate to make Nissan healthy again. After selling over 200,000 examples of its very first model in less than a year, Chinese tech company Xiaomi continues to generate negative headlines. Now owners have started revealing that the panels around the headlamps can warp when sitting out in the sun for long periods of time. The issue is covered under Xiaomi's free repair program, and the fix is said to take around an hour. But it kind of makes you wonder how something like this wasn't caught during vehicle testing and validation. You know, similar to panel glue that fails too fast. However, it looks like some of the complaints against the company have been blown out of proportion. Xiaomi says its legal team uncovered an online smear campaign that started in December of last year and is now being investigated by Chinese authorities. The campaign is alleged to have set up 10,000 social media accounts that used automatic content generators to make up false claims about the company. And there's likely little coincidence that this is all hitting at a critical time for Xiaomi. The company's CEO announced today that it's investing just under $7 billion over the next 10 years to develop its own chips for smartphones. And on Thursday, it reveals its second ever model and its first SUV, the YU7, which is also jumping into one of China's most competitive segments, along with models like the Tesla Model Y. So what do you think? Will Xiaomi win back consumers in China? Mercedes is dropping EQ from the start of its EV names and will instead put EQ technology at the end. Toyota dropped 4X from the BZ and gave its newest EV, the BZ Woodland, a more traditional name. Audi shuffled up the naming of both its ICE and EV models, and GM even dropped the Ultium name. And now Volkswagen is the latest to follow in those footsteps. VW board member Martin Sanders says future electric models will not use ID. Instead, they will have quote-unquote proper names. That means models like the ID2 and ID Everyone will be called something completely different. The production version of the ID2, whatever it's called now, is scheduled to come out sometime next year.
Developing today's vehicles. Issues can happen in an instant. When's the best time to solve a problem? The minute you know you have one. Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure, off-the-shelf solution empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless NeoVi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Gen AI is showing up everywhere, and BMW says it's now using it in its purchasing operations. Automakers have to keep track of thousands of components from thousands of suppliers all over the world, and using AI can slash the time it takes to cut through all that clutter. BMW is using Gen AI in the analysis and comparison of supplier offers, and in the future, it will perform tasks without human supervision, like monitoring supply chain data and creating reports. Even though BMW is talking about this publicly, we think that it's safe to say that all automakers and suppliers are working on the same thing. And speaking of suppliers, the ones in North America really like working with Toyota, Honda, and General Motors, but they don't really like working with Nissan, Ford, and Stellantis. That's the cliff notes of Plante Moran's 2025 annual Supplier Workings Relation Index. Plante Moran interviewed 665 supplier executives about how they feel the automakers treat them, how well they communicate with them, how much they trust them, how well they work together, whether they're paid on time, and a host of other topics. And there's a stark difference about how the suppliers feel about Toyota, Honda, and GM versus Nissan, Ford, and Stellantis. And here's one interesting observation we'll throw into the mix. The automakers with good supplier relationships all have higher quality ratings on the J.D. Power Vehicle Dependability Survey, and they also have higher profits on a per-vehicle basis. There's no concrete stat that we can point to that says better supplier relationships lead directly to higher quality and profits, but the anecdotal evidence is awfully compelling. By the way, we posted an interview with the authors of the Plante Moran study, which you can find on the Autoline website and on our YouTube channel. BMW, Mercedes, and Audi have been beaten up in the Chinese market. So have all the other foreign legacy automakers in China. But it's been a shock to see the vaunted German brands lose sales and market share as easily as the mass market brands. And while the German luxury brands promise they're going to fight their way back, here's an example of the uphill battle that they face. A car company called Series, which up until recently was selling cheap little minivans for under $5,000, shot past Audi, BMW, and Mercedes to become the top luxury car brand by sales in China. So much for all their heritage, history, and brand equity. It only took Series 3 years to climb past them. Sales tripled last year to 427,000 vehicles, and Bloomberg reports that its stock is up 120%. Series is working with Huawei to sell premium SUVs under the Aito brand, both electric and hybrid. And it sure is amazing to see that a cell phone maker and a cheap van maker could pull off a coup like this in such a short amount of time. Tesla started accepting trade-ins of the Cybertruck for new purchases, and owners are shocked at how much their electric truck has depreciated. A member of the Cybertruck Owners Club shared the trade-in estimate of his Foundation series with just over 6,200 miles. Tesla offered him $65,400. But remember, only a year ago, that truck sold for $100,000. That means its residual value plunged more than a third. While that is a huge drop, maybe it's not too surprising since Tesla seems to be struggling to sell new Cybertrucks. We've got the results of the latest Autoline poll where we asked you what you thought of the stop-start technology in cars, where your engine turns off when your car comes to a stop and then starts again as soon as you take your foot off the brake. Only 40% of you said you liked the system, 50% said you hated it, and 10% had other opinions. A lot of you said it really depended on the car, like Michael Danbury, who said, "I recall it working fine in my last gas car, Lincoln MKZ Hybrid. I think it depends on the car. On other cars, it's very noticeable when it starts back up." A bunch of you, like Bill Kerr, pointed out that it really, quote, works best with a hybrid drive, especially a PHEV that doesn't need the engine to pull away from a stop. Electric AC compressors are much more efficient and reduce the issue with stop-start systems. Z's 99599 had a good suggestion. Just make it a setting that you can turn off once and it stays off, he says. Patrick O'Connell has a point of view that's probably pretty typical. I didn't like it at first, but I guess I got used to it because I haven't even thought about this in years, he says. And Mike Carter seemed to speak for all you EV owners. Our electric cars seem to lack this feature, he says somewhat sarcastically. So, all you product planners in the audience, take notice. There's a huge chunk of the car buying public that does not like stop-start. It looks like you either need to make it more seamless or get rid of it altogether. But that's a wrap for this Monday. Thanks for making Autoline a part of your day.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Intrepid Control Systems. Over-the-air engineering boost your game. Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility. And by
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.